I thought it was KSMR.
No.
It starts with an A. All right. Whenever he gonna give us a thumbs up, then we're good to go. We're good to go? All right, everybody. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 19 of the Motivate Me 313 podcast. We have an amazing show lined up for you today. We had a great show last week. We had a couple people who were, behind bars for in prison for about 15 to 20 years, and they came to share their stories and kind of, knock the stigma that just because that happened in their life doesn't mean that you don't have a second chance in life. So it was a great episode last week, and we're going to have another great episode for you this week. As you can see, Sada will not be here again today. She's not feeling well still. Allah Shafi, Sada. Hopefully you feel better really soon. And then you got my big sister, Abid Thabit, here. You got myself, Umar Thabit, in the building. And of course, our guest today is United States Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib Ramsey. So if you can, and give her a round of applause. Shout out to Ramsey. I'm sorry, that's not Ramsey. That's actually the crowd that we have in the building today. Giving us a round of applause. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is in the building. We have a great show. We're going to talk about her journey and how she is a woman pioneer and how she leads the way for women all across the world, especially her being from this state, being right around this in this neighborhood too. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do that, though, we want to tell you, make sure you subscribe to all of our pages. You have YouTube, Oz Media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow us on Oz Media. You can listen to the show later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. And if you want to call in, I'm sure maybe Nader's going to eventually tune in and call in. So shout out to Nader, the brother of Congresswoman.
Please, Nader, do not call in.
So if he does watch, feel free to call in. The number is 313-306-1750. Again, the number is 313-306-1750. We got to give a shout out to our sponsors before we start this show. Shout out to the Balkan House, Hanley International Academy, Qahwa House, and BC Adhesives. We're going to go ahead and go with the coffee place first that, we're drinking ourselves a nice little cup of coffee. Me and Denzel, that is. Shout out to Denzel. He's in the back as well. So shout out to the Qahwa House. So go ahead and Ramsey run that Qahwa House ad and we can get going. The Qahwa House. The Qahwa House is the first coffee shop of its kind. The Qahwa House is a family business established in 2017 for the sole purpose of providing the best quality Yemeni coffee with no added preservatives, artificial additives, or flavors. You can stop by Qahwa House to try their famous Yemeni latte, Adani Shahi, Mafawad, and Jubani coffees. You can also stop by to try their delicious pastries, such as the Yemeni favorite sabaya, their sembusas, and their new menu item, Everything Mini Bites. There are currently 4 Qahwa House locations, with 2 of them coming soon as well, to make it a total of 6. Their 4 locations is West Dearborn, East Dearborn, Williamsburg, New York, Lombard, Illinois, with 2 new locations coming in Canton, Michigan, and Petersburg, New Jersey. So no matter where you're at in the country, be sure to stop by a Qahwa House and get a glimpse of what the Yemeni culture is all about. Illinois, Lombard, and New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Jersey. Yeah, they got a Jersey one and a New York one. So shout out to the Qahwa House. We appreciate them. And first of all, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, we appreciate you for coming today. We would be remiss if we did not mention, Allah Yarham Al-Hajj Adnan Al-Abid passed away this recent Friday. May Allah grant him the highest level of Jannah, Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah ease the family and friends, all the loved ones through this tough time. And may Allah, forgive him for any shortcomings. We really do appreciate you for coming on a short notice. So thank you for being on the show today. But for those that may not know, because I know a lot of people do know, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is it that you do as a Congresswoman?
Well, it's a lot what we do, but so you all know I was born and raised in Southwest Detroit, where I always tell people is 20 different ethnicities. Went to grew up in a beautiful, diverse neighborhood. Actually grew up kind of in the shadows of Patton Park and could see like the Rouge plant when I was in the Patton Park area. I used to cross through there to go to the South End to see my Siti Shama, who lived in Dearborn right across from Salina. But one of the things to know about me is, after high school, I went to Wayne State and, started working at nonprofit organizations. I got really involved in like community organizing, especially about immigrant rights, because a lot of my friends were undocumented at high school, a lot of my Latino friends. And, I was trying to support the DREAM Act and support Dreamers being able to get legal access. Some of them didn't even know they were undocumented until they started applying for college. I was devastated for so many. One of my friends, she's just like smarter than me, top of the class, and she's like, what am I going to do? I can't even go to college. And so I got really involved and decided to go to law school. And while I was going to law school, I worked full time. I actually worked from Monday through Friday and took classes on the weekend and got my law degree after 3 years. It was really hard. I would never recommend trying to do all of it. But I had just gotten married and I couldn't afford to, quit work and just go to school full time. So it was really hard. And then, I met the state representative at the time, Steve Tabachman. And I remember I was doing like a diversity training thing. And he's like, hey, would you come and do it for the Michigan Democrats that just got elected to the state house? And I was like, sure. I came, did it. And he's like, do you want to come work for me? And I was like, I don't want to work in Lansing. I went to law school in Lansing. I was like, I don't. And I was working at Access, actually, in Merkaz Al Arabi. And I was like, okay. When he said, I'll teach you how to kill a bill, I was like, okay. I don't know what it was that drives me, because there was like, at that time, when I was at Access, I was working on these issues. It was 81 or 82 different anti-immigrant bills. One is like, if you weren't born in this country, to put a little checkoff box on your driver's license.
Oh, God.
Crazy things like that. One was a resolution saying to take away the constitutional right, if you're born in this country, to become a U.S. citizen. I mean, it was just really awful stuff. So he said, come work for me, because he was term limited. So I was like, I'll go over there for 2 years, learn all that stuff so I can be actually better at my job.
Right.
And a couple months in, he's like, hey, I'm term limited. I can't run after 6 years. What do you think? You want to run for state representative? I was like, I don't want to sell out. Like, literally, because I was like, anybody who runs for office, I always, because I was one of those people on the outside protesting and holding the signs. And I mean, I remember protesting Congressman Dingell. And even then I told him when I got elected, I was like, I say, and you never silenced me. He was one of those cool people, like, keep doing what you're doing. That's your job. It's democracy, right? But it took 7 different people, honestly. And it was my friend Shelley, who worked at ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan. And she's like, people like us never think about running for office. It's the same people that run for office. You can make a difference if you're on the inside. And because I always thought, God, if you just run for office, you have to change who you are. You have to hide all this stuff. You have to be a certain way. I mean, you should see me. I go to the House floor in my gym shoes because I don't I'm like, I go to my House floor to get things done, do what I need to do or whatever. And I'm still a community organizer. Yeah. And so I ran for state house and, became the second Muslima in the whole country to get elected. And then I think the first ever Muslim woman to get elected to the Michigan legislature. And alhamdulillah, what was great about that is even when I was there, it was different, and Congress is different. We'll talk about that. But when I was there, it was nice because some of my colleagues would come up to me and ask me certain questions like, the local mosque just invited me, like in Coldwater. Yeah. Local mosque just invited me to come. What do I, anything I should be aware of, and all those things. But also, for many, I was the first Muslim they've ever met. Yeah, it was great, because you're serving with 100 plus other people, and they've never met a Muslim before or worked with a Muslim before. But we got so much incredible things done, and I got to represent, Southwest Detroit, where I was born and raised, and got so many, environmental justice, started the first ever community court program. But just so you guys know, I mean, I'm a mother of 2. Adam is 17, Yusuf is 11. I always say I'm a mom first. I mean, I love it because they humble me. Yeah. I know. You could relate to
how it is for
sure.
You
should relate to this because I was just after I got elected to Congress. I don't know what he asked me, and I walk away, and everybody knows Adam knows him. He's super smart. And he asked me something, and Mullah, I didn't know. And I was like, I didn't know, and I was like, Mama, I wish I had Google when I was your age. Go look it up.
Right.
And he's like, walks away and mumbles under his breath, and you're supposed to be a congresswoman. Oh my God. And I swear, I was like, see, this is reminding me, this is, but it is what it is. But, yes, I'm a lawyer. Yes, I'm a mom. It's all these things. But at the end, I see myself as a daughter of the community I represent, as somebody that's going to take care of the moms, the fathers, the big sister. I'm the eldest of 14. I tell everybody, mashallah, that actually prepared me more for public
100%.
Office than my degree, than my even community organizing experience, working the nonprofit human services section. All the things I've done, I promise being eldest of 14 probably best prepared me how to really try to manage and be patient and all these things that are happening in my residence. And I can relate so much.
Especially the oldest girl.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference.
We're gonna get into that for sure because I mean I can see
I
now
have to
that
deal
makes
with
sense.
Nader. He prepared
Shout out
me.
to Nader. Shout out to Nader. A couple things just off of that. Number one is I realize that a lot of elected officials go into law. Is that a requirement, or do you think that's something that is like maybe you recommend maybe or?
No, I mean, honestly, I find that diversifying the people with different lived experiences. I mean, I started to get my master's degree. I actually want to be a journalist for a long time. Go and get the bad people, investigative reporting. That was something like I was like, I'm always about like justice and getting the bullies or the bad people that are hurting folks. But I'll tell you, I serve with folks that were like maybe in labor, retirees, therapy. I worked with a physical therapist, a person that was like a postal worker, different backgrounds. I mean, I really have, and some that actually have no college degree. You would think, I serve with folks that, some of which maybe only have high school diploma and stuff. I mean, I didn't survey everybody, but I have different diverse people of different kinds of work experience. And again, a law degree is not required.
Wow.
So, before last week's show, we actually had Ibrahim Ayash sitting in the same seat that you are on right now. So my question to you is, how has it been working with Ibrahim? Because he's from Hamtramck. We grew up with him. His family. We're all, close. So
yeah. No, Ibrahim has been great. I mean, I don't know if you all know, it's like if you look at any environmental justice press conference, we're the two Arabs that are there all the time. No, really. If it's not taking on the U.S. ecology or some of the work between Detroit and Hamtramck, specifically around air quality, water issues, things like that. No, Ibrahim has been phenomenal. I mean, just seeing the success. I mean, I was so worried. I was like, oh my God, is he going to become floor leader? Because that's who I worked for when I was there in the State House. I was a staff person and came to work. I mean, literally for the majority floor leader, which he now is. So it's a spectacular thing to see. And it's that lived experience. I mean, it's funny, we talk about our parents. And even after I talked to his mom about something, it's like, like, I was like, see, they don't care. They don't care if we become Congress members or whatever. Like when I told my mom I'm going to become a state representative, and I just had Adam wasn't even 2 years old. And she's like, "Shu mama, like, are you going to bring any more kids?" Like, for her, that was a priority. 100%. And me and Abe laugh about the fact that our parents are, obviously incredibly proud of us, but at the end, they still want us marry, kids, home. Yeah, it's really
probably
important.
Top of their list.
Yes, it is. But no, Abe has been. What I love is Abe and I are exposing Islam in such a profound way through public service, 100%. And that when people sometimes used to think of us, of course we care about immigration and civil rights and discrimination. Of course, I mean. Just based on our lived experiences, what happened to my family after 9/11 and the targeting and everything. But I'll tell you, for us to show up when it comes to, fighting for universal health care, or, we're out there saying women deserve to have rights in our country, all these things, and just pushing back against, I love the fact that I think we're like, knocking down these stereotypes that people think like that's all we care about. No, we actually care about the same things. The same things that impact all of our families. But it's wonderful because like he's like, I'm going to go introduce this bill about repealing the right to work. Like this is a really important, like we're going to focus on that, and it makes me proud. He's like, he's making sure that we can actually organize unions. And actually, if you look at like the Arab American community, especially here in our area, we played a pivotal role in supporting, unionizing and supporting collective bargaining. But alhamdulillah, like I think it's been a phenomenal thing to watch. And our younger people can actually now see like themselves in government.
100%. It definitely shows the population in a better way. Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to say about just you being in Congress and Abe as well, it's crazy because at the end of the day, when you guys come in, they have this stigma, you're going to only focus on Muslim issues and whatever. And honestly, you guys are like leaders of the people, not just Muslim people. Yeah. So I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. We like show up and sometimes we're just like, we gravitate towards those issues. And again, it's because we have the shared lived experience, not me and Abe, but like our residents, our neighbors. Mm-hmm. I love, and I tell this to Abe, if you look at the breakdown of when I first got elected in State House and even in Congress, the majority of our neighbors were not Muslim. Yeah. you know, people think, oh, the majority of my community was predominantly like non-Muslim. I think it was like 5% Muslim when I first got elected to Congress, just looking at the data. But alhamdulillah, it was a majority of our neighbors that even though we might not share the same faith or ethnicity, we share the same values and the same, you know, dream of, you know, all of us having opportunities to thrive. So it's been kind of cool. We share stories all the time, actually, he and I.
Yeah, for sure. And I said this to him, and I'll say this again, like, you know, nowadays our youth or our younger people, they look up to people that they would never probably meet or ever see in their lives, like rappers or athletes. And, you know, they don't realize that, to me, the true leaders and the people that they should be looking up to, the role models, are sitting right next door to them. And we got 2 of them. We're blessed to have 2 of them right in the area. So we really appreciate all that you do. You really are true leaders, you, Abe, and, you know, everybody that's in that, you know, elected official role. So thank you for all that you do. But you kind of talked about some of the stuff that you've done as a Congresswoman. But what are some of you feel like your biggest accomplishments that you've accomplished?
You know, one of the things that during the pandemic, I don't know if you know, you probably have heard, and a lot of neighbors are not going to obviously share this, but, you know, people are really struggling to pay for their water. Water has increased 400% in cost around the country. And here at home, more and more of our neighbors, and let me tell you, I represent Detroit and suburbs around Detroit. I don't care if it's Redford Township, Inkster, Dearborn Heights. We hear from our neighbors that are like, I can't afford this water bill. And so I helped create the $1.1 billion Water is a Human Right Fund. We call it LIWAP, but it's a program where basically if you're facing shut off, you'll be able to get access. And by the way, Wayne Metro Community Action Agency, if you need any help, you can call our office. We can connect people to them to make sure that we can pay off your water, but don't wait until they show up to shut off your water, which some are actually going to start showing up to shut off the water. Unfortunately, we have some city administrators are like, okay with that. Also, I'm a social worker at heart. I think it's just my nature being the eldest of 14, but I created 4 neighborhood service centers. Currently with the new district, we have 3 now, just because geographically it kind of fits and works, and we're going to work it out. But the neighborhood service centers is where I can use the power of my letterhead, the power to convene, to really help people. I love the fact that when I call DTE, they call me back. Or, you know, a resident of mine is like, listen, I couldn't get this appointment. I don't know what's going on. We call. Or, you know, the hospital, they have like a medical bill, and they're like, Rashida, I don't know what to do. I can't believe they just got sent this bill. And I'm like, let me call it, you know, we'll call the health system or the hospital. And yeah, they have finished, but I know because I called or my office called that they're going to call my resident back. So using the neighborhood service centers to help people through everyday challenges and issues goes hand in hand with policy. And it actually gives me all my bill ideas when I'm like, this is so unfair. Why is this happening? Oh yeah, it's so unfair because we pass all these bills and people think, oh, this khalas, we're done. I'm like, no, implementation matters because some of those folks do not know where to get these funds, do not know where to go, you know, homeowners assistance or renters assistance or free legal assistance, all these things that we do fund through the federal budget. A lot of my residents don't know how to access it. And it's because a lot of our nonprofits, you know, they don't have like a marketing team or anything. Some of them are so small.
Nonprofit.
Exactly. And so we use, again, the power of the office. So the neighborhood service center, you know, is a model. I'm the only member of Congress actually has service centers around the district that I don't want people to think, oh, this is where, you know, Congresswoman Tlaib just like meets with people. This is where you can actually get help.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's awesome, and thank you for sharing. Go ahead.
I feel like people probably come, like, you know, especially like people that you know, they think that they can just come straight to you to solve a problem. So this was like solving the problem in a way where they still get the help that they need.
Yeah,
you know?
it's always shocking to people because they're like, oh my God, they called me. I was like, yeah, I'm telling you, when your Congress member calls, like, don't just call us to vote yes or no on something or to yell us about something that happened, you know, or whatever, or President Biden didn't do this or something. But also think about like, wait, I'm having this issue with my kid at school. I don't know what's going on, special needs. Like, I can't get them to respond to me to like an IEP program. You're a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, even
as an advocate.
Yeah, as an advocate. But sometimes if I call or just say, hey, U.S. Department of Education, like, how do I get around this kind of struggle and issue? Well, what school district is it? Let me figure this out. They will respond.
We got a plug.
Yeah. Well, I'm just telling you guys, it's one of the things that I feel like a lot of our residents underutilize. 100%. And they think like they're bothering us. Like, no, it's our job.
Yeah.
Like we're paying taxes in a way.
No, you're paying us to be an advocate. Like, I love getting the bills that we need done, but then I'm like, I actually care about like seeing it change people's lives. Yeah. But yeah, I need to see that, and I love it. I mean, every time I hear somebody say, oh, I've been trying to get the IRS to send my refund, I don't know what's going on. It's been 2 years. And when I see them like get like $7,000, I feel like I won the lottery. I was like, you got $7,000. They're like, Rashida, I got the $7,000. And I'm like, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You are never afraid to speak up and to stand up for what's right. Maybe this has come into play with being the oldest of 14 kids. Maybe that didn't have anything to do with it. But why is that the case? Why do you're ready to take on any issue?
I don't know. I think, of course, it is, growing up, I think, in the most beautiful, blackest city in Detroit. And in Detroit, you're just not raised by your mother. It's like in the blood, like in Palestine. In Palestine, like the whole neighborhood.
Takes a village.
Yes. And it was like that. It was like I had the mothers on the block. Even when my mom didn't know what's going on, they knew what's going on. And they didn't care. They'd be like, come here. What are you doing? Get home. It's dark, And so I think it's that, in the fact that there's always this moment. I still remember, and I always tell the story. Every time I remember my mom, because my mom, was pregnant with me when she came here from Palestine. And, I didn't speak English when I started school because my mom was still learning. My dad was at the night shift at Ford Motor Company. And so he was sleeping during the day. So it was hard, we were just adjusting. And I remember my mom coming to like one of those PTA meetings, like the parent meetings. And I'm like, you can see whatever. And then she was like trying to like articulate something. And it was like black mothers in the room. They're like, Fatima, raise your voice. They can't hear you. And I don't know, little girl like this. And it wasn't like, you got to, no, they were like, no, you need to speak, girl. You're here. You need to speak, And so I still remember that. And I always tell people, I don't know if you guys remember Sears. You're too young, maybe.
No, I
remember Sears.
So there was Sears in Lincoln Park. And every time because when my mom learned how to drive finally, she wouldn't take the highways. Anything to like, she'd just take like Ford Street, anywhere, but she wouldn't take the highway. And so I remember when I was little, like I was maybe 12 years old or something. I can't remember. And we went up to the counter. And of course, my mom was making me translate to the woman what 100%. She's saying. Yeah, like how much is this if I have this? And she had the little Sears coupon. And I remember the cashier like looking up at at my mom, like, no, she was looking at me and she was like, she needs to learn English and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know what happened to me. I started bopping my head. I was like, excuse me.
Right.
Excuse me. But as you can see, my mother is not having me translate what you're saying to her because she understands you. She's having me translate what she wants to say to you because people like you make fun of her accent. You speak up and you're like, and my mom hates that attention. She's one of those, like, she's always telling me, so we need to because she just kind of grew up. If you're like a fly, just keep your head down. Nothing will happen. And I remember the woman's like, and I kind of went off on her and like, I remember my mom leaving the clothes, everything, and walking out. You know how moms do they do that little pinch, and they're like moving me out. And she's like, we can never come to this Sears again because of you. And she always says, you're the one that's always in trouble. And I don't know, I think my mom doesn't realize being kind of that girl next to her and is like made me this like very protective mama bear type, like, no, don't mess with people. It's none of your business. Stay out of people's lives. Let them be happy. And so I don't know. And I always tell people I'm a Detroiter with Palestinian blood. Like, it's a combination.
Put those two together.
Yeah. People saying you don't exist. Like, what are you talking about? I'm right here. I'm my ancestors, wildest dream in here, up here in Congress, unapologetically Muslima, Palestinian, all these things. Mm-hmm. But again, I think my mom doesn't realize, because sometimes she's like, I don't know how you turned out like this. And then she'll say, because my Siti Shama Allah Arhamha was pretty strong. And she goes, Wallah Zay Siti Shama, because that was her mother-in-law. She's like, just like her. I don't know how you turned out just like her. But I think it's just, people don't realize, our parents don't realize, we're watching and it makes us turn into, either we're angry or we get really upset about it, but we react. And I don't know, I constantly reacted very protective.
No, I seen this one meme once where it was like, we're different. When I was 7, I was reading legal documents to my parents and translating them, and they were helping you with your homework. Yeah. So we came to this land where our parents didn't know much, and we had to kind of learn at a young age, we're the ones filling out our the paperwork for school. And I'm
still doing my mom's passports to everything. I literally, she's a ESL program at Access because, the last daughter finally got, married in September. So she's like, Mom, I want to learn how to read. She speaks English, everything, but she's like, she wants to really learn how to read and write. For her. Yeah, alhamdulillah, I love it. But, she's up in there. It's the second day or something. And I came to speak to the ESL class. It was great. And they were like, making sure we translate in Spanish and then Arabic. So I had to do it all in English. And in the middle of the thing, my mom is like, you can hear her going through her purse. I'm like, oh my God. She's so loud. And then she pulls out, she's like, Mama, Hawiyat Palestine expired. Because she can't go back to see my grandmother unless she gets that. She has to take that one and she can't. And right in the middle in the middle, she didn't care. I mean, literally, they were translating, and my mom goes, Mama, and everybody started cracking up laughing. Of course, I'm like, here, give it to me. Okay. I had to finish my speech. But yeah, she just called me today, like, did you do it?
It's crazy. I remember balancing my dad's checkbook in 5th grade. Like,
oh, me too.
It's crazy.
Yeah, my dad knew how to do it. It was my mom, like, that I was the most, yeah. My dad was pretty sharp, even though he only had 4th grade education. Wow. I mean, he taught himself. He spoke 3 languages, taught himself everything. Yeah.
Well, you kind of talked about growing up as a Palestinian in the neighborhood. So how has that shaped the way you think as a congresswoman? I know you kind of talked about it a little bit, but you want to dive into like how that kind of made you who you are today? Yeah, I mean, I always tell the story sometimes of, I remember, I think it was like 1994, 95. It was like, I think it was I just finished up Wayne State University first year, and I was 19 or something. And I remember going to the Blad to Palestine to see my grandmother. I took my grandmother back home, and she was here in America. And I remember even just it was one of those years where the prime minister at the time was a little bit more, was Rabin, and I don't know, there were some things were changing. It was before he got assassinated, and I remember we all could like get on the bus. We could actually go to like Tel Aviv for the first time and go and see the sea. I mean, like I remember getting there. It was the first time my cousins, everybody saw the water like that. Yeah. And they jumped in. None of us didn't even know how to swim, like jumped in and everything. And I remember as they got in there, you guys, I'm not like, I remember they didn't notice it. I did. How some of the Israeli folks like got out because we got in. And in that moment, this is why this is important. I just remember because you all might not know, in Detroit Public Schools in 1990, they decided to replace our history, social studies books with learning our history through the African American lens. It was like learning all the iconic figures that pushed against discrimination, segregation. And I remember hearing the stories about, black children getting into the pool and others getting out and all this stuff. And it just clicked to me and responded to me. And I don't know, I just go, oh my God, I get it now. Because even at that age, I wasn't sure what was going on, of course. I knew, obviously, from 1948, everything, the Nakba, everything that happened. But at that moment, I saw the true racism that was really behind a lot of, and blanketed sometimes with these like nuances that people kind of bring up or things that they bring up. But at the end, it is othering. It is racism. It's saying that you're less than solely because you were born Palestinian. Yeah. And so people like, oh, they don't like how I describe, but it's true. It's like if my grandmother was not born Palestinian, she would have human dignity in her homeland. Like it would be different. And all of that comes with me, all my experiences. So even when I hear about the struggle in Puerto Rico for self-determination, I think about that. Or if one of my neighbors is like, Rashida, this happened to me at work and stuff, I'm like, that's not supposed to happen. Like, you deserve better. Even trying to do that kind of uplifting my residents when they're being othered or targeted or feeling less than. Even one of my residents who's, she's really, really struggling. She's like, people treat me so bad because I'm poor, Rashida. And I was like, you shouldn't feel, look, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and no one should treat you less than because you can't afford, washer and dryer. I mean, come on. And I told, so it's always always thinking about those kinds of things constantly comes to my mind. So. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, we have Qamar Zindani comments in saying, Salam, hello, beautiful people. I got to forward this right now. I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to connecting with and listening to Representative Rashida. So she wanted to make sure she chimed in and said that as well. And so, recently, or not recently, but probably like a few months ago, I saw that you posted a video about emissions being released near Dearborn School. I believe, was it Salina? Was that next to Salina? Mm-hmm. So when I seen that video, and the reason why, so we grew up, like we were born in Detroit, we grew up in Hamtramck, but we visited Dearborn a lot because we had family here. And I remember as a kid, there was always emissions being released.
You remember that rotten egg smell? Sometimes you still smell it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so
I thought it was normal.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was like how it's supposed to smell.
No, it was our one thing to get on Dearborn because there was always that Dearborn version.
Yeah.
It was like our one thing. Well, you guys
not in Southwest Detroit, girl. That smell was still over. It still got to us. I don't know, Hamtramck. You guys had the incinerator. You don't remember that? The incinerator was pretty bad.
Yeah. So
kind of right at the border there.
Yeah.
People were talking about that, and I'm gonna be honest with you, we don't remember that.
We don't because we moved to Hamtramck in '97.
I mean, it was still kind of far. I think the incinerator a little bit, but yeah. But even now, the ecology center for sure. It's impacting. Yeah. U.S.
So
Ecology.
when we
U.S. Ecology. I always say Ecology Center. That's a nonprofit. I'm sorry. It's U.S. Ecology.
So like seeing that, what has been done like about that, and like what is the process of something like that even being eliminated? I guess that's the question I want to like to ask.
It's how we do permitting in our country. So right now, some of my residents, especially in original Southwest Detroit, I call it, right at the border, kind of right past like Melvindale, that whole area right there is called 48217, or Southwest Detroit, right there, Schaefer and Fort. The resident said it beautiful. She's like, I feel like our federal government just gives permission to pollute. And so, I introduced cumulative impact analysis. So basically this says, right, and think about this, you guys, right now, most of these plants are applying for these air permits. I think it's every 5 years. It's like a recurring, whatever title, whatever, category that they're in. And they apply for these permits unless they're expanding, which, I hear rumors Marathon is thinking of, doing all this stuff too. That permitting process is looking at only the output of that industry, not the one next to it, not the one. Yeah. So in that whole area, even not just Rouge, you guys, it's a lot of other plants. It's over it could be hundreds of air permits. They're not looking at all of the output collectively. They're only looking at that one source. That's not how we're going to make sure that our public health is protected. We have to look at all of it collectively, cumulatively, and say to the industry, you have to do a cumulative impact analysis to see what the impact would be. Because
before going ahead.
Before I even represented the south end of Dearborn, we did press conferences when I was a state house member, and even when I was in Congress, we did them together because, there's no wall between what my district right there, I had Melvindale and Southwest Detroit. And, listening to parents talk about, one had a 6-year-old twins, I think, and he would have to put the breathing machine on him. They live in South End, and testifying about that. And saying, everybody keeps telling us this is, that the yellow, orangey stuff coming out is normal. That's not normal. Or, and that's the thing. There's been lawsuits before where a lot of folks, like my grandmother, I think, was part of it. All this, before, where they gave everybody $800 so that you can never sue them again, or all this stuff. But at the same time, that did not fix how the permitting process is. So at some point, we got to realize how inhumane it is to allow people, especially in the shadows of a school, 2 of them, park, where kids are literally running around, and what the real impact is. I think that there needs to be, a real conversation about that. Like, do we make sure they do mitigation? Because people don't even know that Salina just got air filtration, just like a couple years ago or something like that. And who maintains that? Who's going to pay for that? Like, they should continue to talk about those kinds of things. I know I grew up 4 blocks north of Delray. Delray neighborhood was really, surrounded by industry, still really, really challenged community. And they building a new bridge. Most of those folks urged for air filtration within their homes, not just where school and everything. So there needs to be a real conversation about that because people live there. The industries can't just be like, okay, that's fine. Because at the end, we're going to pay the cost of it because many folks are going to get sick. You hear it all the time. I hear things like nasal cancer. I've never heard such a thing, or respiratory issues. And there's no such history in their family. And I'll tell you, our kids can't learn. I promise, how they say the kids can't learn if they're hungry. Yeah. Kids can't learn if they're breathing dirty air or they're being exposed to different leads and particulates in the air. And it really does impact brain development, all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if you've ever heard, a lot of women there were saying to me, I lived here all my life, I can't get pregnant. Or I've had issues. Yeah, I hear it all the time. And so I wonder honestly what the true impact is of living in the shadow. And by the way, the Rouge plant is like the 800-pound, it's not Rouge, Cleveland Cliffs. It's the what used to be AK Steel or Severstal, that big red, or that big red. That one outputs. That particular industry outputs a ton of pollution.
Wow.
Yeah, that's definitely something very serious that needs to be definitely addressed. I feel like, especially for the residents over there. I know that like our family that lives around that area, that's something that they've always been complaining about for a long time, for a very long time. But
does the filtration even like help? Like I know it's like
it could possibly help. I mean, at the end, everyone knows that we need to start transitioning and talking about how do we create clean energy and clean air and not do this. Again, you know, I think even in Southwest Detroit, you know, it was very common. Everybody loved to be able to live where they worked. So they would come home for lunch. I mean, I heard Hungarians and Polish immigrants that used to work at the different plants and say, you know, homes were built around industry. It's like you go to work, you come home, you walked, you know, for lunch and came back. Now we know we've been studied enough. We know that you can't allow people to live here and not expect them to end up sick and all these other issues with their public health. And so there needs to be a real conversation about what that looks like.
Ramsey, if you're ready to go, we're going to give a shout out to our second ad of today, which is the Balkan House, because Congresswoman has been on a roll. We want to give her a break, maybe give her a water break, because she's been dominating this conversation so far. So shout out to the Balkan House. Whenever you do come to Hamtramck, you can let us know. We can definitely get you some Balkan House because they are, yeah, they're great food over there. So go ahead, Ramsey. The Balkan House Restaurant. The Balkan House Restaurant is famous for their doner kebab sandwich. But did you know that the Balkan House now serves breakfast? Did you also know that all their food is 100% halal? The Balkan House now also have 2 food trucks, so you can book your next party or event with the Balkan House on wheels. Their Hamtramck location is 3028 Kniff Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. Their Ferndale location is 314 West 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan. Again, you can book their food trucks for your next party or event. So if you're looking for a nice place to eat, with friendly service and great prices, look no further than the Balkan House restaurants. I want to give a shout out to Ramsey one more time, man. You're doing an awesome job back there. Appreciate you, Ramsey.
Thank you, Ramsey.
He has a big game tomorrow. So he got to get ready for the game, too.
But Mom took him out of practice early.
Yeah. Coach probably is at home. I mean, punching the air every time she does it. So there have been, you've inspired a lot of people, and it's not just Muslim women, but in recent year or 2 or 3 or 4, there's been a great wave of like Muslim women who's just been standing, in the front lines and actually getting things done. And, some of them prefer to be behind the scenes still because that's their personal choice. But now there's been, Muslim women coming, standing, like I could just think of a few of them. You got Principal Iman Ali Ahmed, you got Negwa, that at least that we know from the neighborhood that are doing great. Negwa's from Melvindale, by the way. So just in general, what are your thoughts on, you kind of being that person that kind of opened that door? And what are your thoughts on just these Muslim women actually finally speaking up and standing up and going to the front lines? Because they've always been helping and
I don't, for me, maybe because I was a woman, I mean, I always saw them.
Okay.
I just didn't think the world saw them.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I really did. I saw my grandmother. I saw my auntie. I saw everybody. I mean, I saw women doing that all the time, maybe because I was there and I saw it myself. Even when I was a little girl, I used to go Access or, up and down Salida where they did events or something like that with my mom, or even among like immigrant communities in Southwest Detroit, like the Latino communities. I don't know. For me, maybe because I was where the women were, I saw it all the time. What is incredible is, like, if you look at the state legislatures across the country, there are more Muslim women elected this year. I mean, everywhere. Places like Illinois, I saw a young, she's a Gen Z, she just got elected. Oh my God, Delaware. I think a Muslim got elected in Delaware. Nice. Colorado, there's a Muslim there that got elected. And there's tons more, I promise. But it's amazing and incredible. And what I also love, if you look, again, their district is not predominantly Muslimin. And I tell that to young people who are thinking, I can't run here. I have to, especially here growing up out of in Metro Detroit, there's this conception of that, like, this person got, a lot of people that might be Muslim or even Arab Americans are getting elected in communities that, again, might not share that ethnicity or that faith, but they see something in them like, this is my neighbor, they get it, they have the same values, let's do this and support them. But it's, mashallah, it's happening all over the country.
Any thoughts on that?
No, I really feel like it has to do a lot with the Muslim, elected officials from before. So they see what you do. They see how, the integrity behind it. And they're like, well, and then they hear them out. And without seeing the label as a Muslim, and obviously it's giving them chances. So I feel like it really has to do with, with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, when we ran, I want to be honest, like when I ran for Congress, I was so angry who was the president. I really was. and I was that. And I also, my son was like, Adam was like 9 or something. 9 or 10. And I remember we were talking because they were mentioning the Muslim ban. I don't care if your mom, your kids are saying things like, it's okay, mama, because he heard me talking about, to his dad about this ad in USA Today. You got to check it out. This ad was awful. It was like a skeleton or something, and it looks like he was dressed as like a Nazi, as like a skeleton, and it said Allahu Akbar in Arabic on the side. And I looked at it, and we did this big campaign with Campaign to Take on Hate. I was one of their advisors and helping with the strategy there. And I think we sent over 3,000 signatures to tell them, like, you got to apologize for these, got to remove this, you can't do this, because it depicted Muslims as, in the same depiction of like, hey. And I was like, to his father, he heard me like tell his father, this is crazy. This is the first time I was like, oh my God, people are going to want to kill us. This is crazy. Yeah. And this is just so wrong, and we got to stop it. And he walks in, and he's like, Mama, don't worry. If anybody asks if I'm Muslim, I will tell them I'm not. Aww. Of course, I'm like crying, like, oh my God. Yeah. And I sit down, he's like, Mama, it's okay. I won't do it. I was like, but Mama, that's, but he was telling me because he was like worried that he hears me saying it, it's compassion. Now, don't worry. Like Adam's like, he's like, but now,
but at that moment he's scared.
Yes.
And he's scared
and I thought to myself though, like Adam, alhamdulillah, he's getting raised in a community that's a huge Arab everywhere. He sees a jama, he can hear the call of the prayer because we lived right by Woodmere Cemetery. All this, all these beautiful things that he gets exposed to, and it's a beautiful, diverse community in Southwest. But I kept thinking all these other kids everywhere, and alhamdulillah, we're blessed, but I meet them all the time. So when I ran, I'm like, I'm going to take on corporate polluters. I'm going to take this guy on. I'm going to impeach him. I got this. Like, I got this. We're going to get rid of this big bully, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's never going to let my kid think he, somehow he got to hide who he is. I mean, what do we fight for, to be unapologetically ourselves and all these things. And it was a little girl named Rianne in Sacramento, California, Palestine too, little girl. And she had like just a regular shirt on. She had like a blazer. Wallahi, she comes up to me and she's like, the blazer. So as a mom, you're like, she wants me to know it's her blazer, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, mashallah, I love your blazer. Mashallah, look at you. Mashallah, Annik. And she goes, I'm trying to look like you. I said, girl, forget Congress. Run for president of the United States. And she goes, mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I think we did that. Yeah. I thought to myself, no, really. I was like, I think we did that. I think like, oh my God, because if somebody said that to me when I was 8 years old.
You're not going to believe it.
Never.
Because you don't see nobody.
But she's like, oh, Rashida, Rianne, Palestinian Muslim. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. I'm
going
to run for Congress.
100%.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. So at that moment.
That's so cute.
At that moment, wallahi, I thought, oh my God, I think we did that. Like, when I say they, I mean my whole team. Mashallah on them that you should see. It's a diverse, beautiful team. And I thought, because we were going to take on system, we're going to break down, we're going to help people out of poverty, we're going to take on these corporate polluters that think they can just do this and make all this money and like let us all die of respiratory and cancer and all these things. And a bully that thinks, oh, let me get rid of Muslims in our country. I just have to tell you, I mean, that face, I still remember it today. It makes my whole heart so full, because I really do believe there are more Riannes everywhere thinking, yeah, I can run for president.
And it has a lot to do with, people like you said, paving the way for them, for sure.
100%. So I seen this poster, and it said, it had a bunch of powerful women and then a verb that before the, your name. So it was like persist like Elizabeth, speak like Nancy, inspire like Alexandria, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then with you, it said challenge like Rashida. How does that make you feel?
I'm challenging the status quo that, that really impacted our parents.
100%.
That said, no, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to be right here. No. So I like it. I mean, I don't care. I come on onto the House floor. I may be the only one, and usually I am, the only one speaking up and speaking truth to power. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That's what those black mothers were trying to tell my mother. And I'm going to continue doing that when I get on the floor always.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, me growing up as well, my black friends did hype me up too, so shout out Shamanique.
No, for sure.
No joke, like, I'm like, all right. It was like, just right. Like, I got this.
Yes.
Definitely gives you the confidence. It's funny you said like just standing up to, our parents, like, are you okay with your kids standing up to what you have to say sometimes too? Like, are you like, how does that balance
I'll tell
happen?
you, when my mom to this day, I'm going to be 47 this year.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, my mom's like, "Khalas ya ma." So we should, no, Khalila Allah. Leave it to God. Don't, what are you doing? No. And I'm like, Mom, I'm a congresswoman. It's my job. Like, I have to. She's like, why are you getting arrested? I said, Mom, we're fighting for 15. We got $15 minimum wage. We got to do this. She's like, for what? I was like, Mama, this is what I have to do. Speak up. And it's funny because Adam, my son, is, so now I know why my mom, because she's like, wait, because alhamdulillah, my mom's not on Twitter. Thank God. My mom's not on Twitter. Well, alhamdulillah. But she got on Facebook. So she sees some stuff now. But, I see my son and he is ready to challenge. He already is.
Yeah.
And you think I'm really, really progressive and all this. He's already written things and talked about things.
17,
and he's 17. And I'm just, I'm like, Mama, where are you going to go? He said, we're going to go, deliver these letters to senators about the, Equal Rights Act. And what the hell, Mom, women don't have equal pay in our country. And no, really, like we pass all this stuff, but we still can't even pass that equal pay for women. We don't have equal, and
that's so mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. And so my son goes for like he comes to DC for this thing called Generation Ratify and this group that he's involved with. And he goes and he does this. And I'm always like, oh my God, where is he? What is he doing? And I was like, so one time he goes to me, I said to him, Mama, behave, do we good? He goes, you too. he said, you too. I swear. I was like, oh, good one.
That is pretty funny.
Hey, future president there.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
I feel it.
I don't know.
Future
I'm so now that
inshallah.
I've been there, it's and he's like me, very compassionate. I don't know. The place, Congress is can be incredibly toxic. You think, remember high school and like you had it's a different level of that, of feeling of that you got daggers on you and people really trying to just tear you down because they don't want you challenging the status quo. They don't want you to speak the truth and say, hey, why are we funding this? Why are we doing it this way? So it is very different. So when he says to me, oh, Mom, I could do that. I can probably be better than, like he does. He says that to me. And I'm like, I don't know if I want him near. I'm so protective.
Yeah.
He knows.
And it's so funny that you say that because
It's the mama bear in you.
Yeah.
kind of leads into the next question of, with everything that you do have to deal with, every time that we see it, at least just off social media and stuff, there's always a smile on your face, mashallah. That's not easy. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. So what's the secret? How do you manage to just, attack every day like it's a new day, no matter what happened in the past or yesterday, whatever it is, you wake up the next day with a smile on your face, ready to go?
I mean, alhamdulillah, I, from Salah, which is very, 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 very meditating for me and everything. But it's also like coming home to my district every week. When there's no votes, I'm home. I come home every weekend when there's 2 or 3 weeks of votes. I don't care if it's Friday through Monday or whatever. I feel like, Michael Moore, the filmmaker, he said the same thing. He goes, no, I know what you mean. I said, when I landed Detroit Metro, I'm like, I can actually, I feel myself exhaling. Like, because I was like, everybody here gets it. Yeah. They totally get it. Where, there it's like they try to kind of beat it out of you almost like, no, that ain't how it works here. And that's just how it is. And, if you do this is what's going to happen, and try to make you fearful. But as soon as I get home, I know rejuvenate. I'm home and I'm looking and they're like, you should get them. You better tell those people that's, and so you leave. You leave. Yeah. And you leave like, all right, I got my marching orders. I'm going to go get this done.
And it's very important to, I try not to, I guess, dwell on stuff, but, to keep that smile on your face. I'm sure that I definitely, I
get it from my mom's side.
That's good.
No, Angel. They, even through like hardship and everything, like we do that. I mean, when we're like alone and stuff, whatever, but we try, I don't know. I don't know if it's healthy, but I know, I watch my mom. She always had a smile on her face, but when she's home, that's when she shed those tears and got it out of her. But when she left that house, she was like, had that joyful spirit.
Nader's the same way, man. Every time I see him, he has a smile on his face too, and positive, no matter what the circumstances.
He doesn't smile at me.
That's that brother-sister relationship. Have you seen me smile at her? Yeah,
we work together and then we do this. We're always together. It gets, it's nice and we have our moments.
For sure. I want to say this is kind of off topic, but what makes you, I guess, what's a hobby that you love doing that maybe people don't know about, or at least the general public may not know that you just love doing? I know you say you like going home and being with the family, but what else? Like,
I mean, okay, so I am a typical person that likes those Turkish soap operas. I don't care what anybody says. And they get better around Ramadan. I don't know if you noticed, like the ones that come out. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They really make you check out. Like it's some crazy stuff and just twists and turns and like
so many episodes.
I know, and it goes on and on. I mean, sometimes I'm like, just let me skip. I need to know what text going on.
And I'll just go to the characters that I actually that I care about.
Yes, me too. I skip. I'm like, I don't even like this character. I don't know why they wrote that in to fill it in so they could put 20 more or 30 more episodes. Timing. But they're pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, my Adam makes fun of me for it.
That's funny. But believe it or not, we're kind of winding down to the end, so feel free if you have any questions. Feel free to shoot them out. But this is the part where we call it the Motivate Me 313 minute. Shout out to Abir. We usually pull clips from this video to let people know that we had this show. But obviously, a smarter thing that she came up with was like, hey, why don't we actually record it with a phone? And it'll be obviously better quality than pulling a clip from YouTube and screen sharing it. So basically, during this time, same thing. We're just gonna ask the question, but she'll be also recording on her phone. And this is where we want you to give us advice. And the advice is, what advice do you have for people, maybe specifically women who are afraid to speak up and stand up for what's right? What advice would you give them?
I mean, the advice I was always told is, speak up even if your voice shakes, even if your voice is shaking. Speaking up, and it is something that you won't regret, as long as it's for good.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that. And then before we close out the show, we do want to say, be sure to subscribe to our pages, YouTube, Oz Media, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. You can listen to the show later. You got Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Oz Media. Again, subscribe, like, follow. Shout out to our sponsors. You got the Balkan House, you got BC Adhesives, you got Qahwa House and Hanley International Academy. We really appreciate our sponsors. Really appreciate Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib coming on the show today. We tried to make this happen for a while now, so I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. So thank you so much for coming on. And then final word, any final comments you want to say? Anybody out there that's maybe watching?
No, just whoever you are, whatever your background. I mean, I know people don't believe me, but sometimes when you're authentic, like just be you, unapologetic. I promise it is so much more healthier and more liberating when you are. And alhamdulillah, I feel like it will always get you in the direction that you're supposed to be at, that it was meant for you. I say that because I feel like some people try to mold to be part of something that they think that's what's going to make them happy, and it's not. It's you being totally yourself, what you love, what you like. Just be out there. Even when, people think, oh, that's weird. It's who you are, and if that's what you love, do it. And I really believe that being your extraordinary, authentic self, no matter how many of my brothers, sisters be like, why'd you do that? Why'd you say that? Whatever. And I'm like, I felt it at the moment. This is what I feel. And so when you do that, I promise it will more inspire people, but also it's very healing for you to be just completely free in doing that. Again, as long as it's for good and not hurting someone.
I have a question off of that.
Yeah.
Have you ever said something that you regretted? Like, oh, maybe I should have something.
I mean, sometimes I regret the distraction it might create because some people don't understand. It's mind-boggling to me how people are like, oh, you shouldn't have said it that way, or why'd you curse at the president, or why'd you do this? But at the same time, I'm like, but that's what I felt at the moment. And one of my seniors one time said to me, I don't know if I would have said it that way. But Rashida, when you said it, I felt freer. I was like, she said it, even though I wouldn't ever say it. But me saying it made her feel like, yeah.
Listen, you're saying the things that we're all saying in our heads.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think it's that part of me being a child of my mother's and a child of Palestinian parents of Ayib, don't say it like that, or don't do it this way, or whatever. And I'm not just talking about what I said, whatever. But sometimes it's just even when I wore, the Palestinian thobe, a lot of people are like, don't do it, it's too much, it will be too much forward. Literally wearing it on my first day getting sworn in, I was like, no.
That was so beautiful by that.
I know, but people, from our own community was like, come on, you don't want to just come out right out. I was like, why not? Yeah. I was like, my mother's passport, U.S. passport, says she was born in Jordan. No, she wasn't. She was born in Palestine. I'm going to give it back to her. Boom. I'm going to walk on the floor. We're Palestinian, period. We exist. Yeah. And so, but I tell you, even those, if I listen like that and I try to, because even at the moment, even though I'm like, they made me think about it and second guess, and I'm like, but what do I feel right now? I feel very, very much like I want to be my whole full self. And I'm not going to hide it. So anyways, it was amazing because we did tweet it started this whole trend, tweet the Thaib, I think, or something. Yeah. And everybody was tweeting Thaibs and everything. It was pretty, yeah, it was really amazing. But I probably see some of the Ammos are like, Rashida, I don't know. It's too much, too aggressive.
It's crazy because growing up, we were very shy about wearing our ethnic clothing.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And then now I feel like it's been this whole switch of everybody's like, it makes me want to, do better.
Yeah.
Same for me too. And I think it just took time, but eventually we kind of overcame all that. Ramsey, can we give Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib a round of applause, by the way, for an amazing job today. So thank you so much, honestly, for coming on and having this conversation. And quickly, the passport said Jordan because they didn't want to acknowledge Palestine.
At that time, when my mom came in the late 70s, no, it wasn't considered. So they put Jordan instead of Palestine.
That's so.
I know, and so many. When I say that story, so many Palestinians tell me the same thing. Yeah. So, but no, my mother is very proud and very much born in Palestine.
For sure. So thank you again for coming on. This was season 2, episode 19 of Motivate Me 313 podcast. We hope you enjoy. We'll see you all again next week, same time. Have a great rest of your week.